questions will assume we'll try to push drugs to keep us all dumbed down and hope that they will never see the truth around. Another promise, another scene, another package lie to keep us trapped in greed. Another green bells wrapped around our minds, an endless red tape to keep the truth confined. They will not force us. They will stop degrading us. They will not control us. We will be victorious.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. So tonight is a year in review show. However, you guys know for the past 11 months, I've been covering East Palestine, Ohio. So to me, this kind of is my year in review. We've talked about so many incredible things with unions and protests and anti-imperialism and things like that. But this kind of encompasses everything. This is corporatism. This is capitalism. This is oligarchs. This is, politicians who are bought. This is environment. This is healthcare. This is everything when it comes down to the topic of East Palestine. So I thought, you know what? This is near and dear to my heart. I'm going back there actually this month. I could say this month. So who better to have than Miss Jami? Y'all know Jami. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Joy.
Of course. So, let's just I have typical viewers and, I have usuals who I'm sure know a lot of things that are going on, but let's also refresh people's memories because a lot, you guys got hardly any attention to begin with. And then, of course, it was less and less and less. And Wednesday is going to be 11 months. So bring us back to February 3rd, where you were, what you saw, and basically what happened following that the next few days.
Well, on the night of February 3rd, I was at home babysitting my daughter and a friend of my husband's child. And I started hearing sirens. My mother called and told me that a train had derailed right next to the state line, which is where my husband was at the bar with his friend. He hadn't been out in about a year. So when I called, I was like, a train just derailed. And he's like, typical husband, you just don't want me having drinks with my friend. And It looks like a small fire. He calls back 10 minutes later and he's like, I'm on my way home. It looks like the gas station's going to explode. By the time he got home, it was maybe 15 minutes after he got home that my mom called and said, you need to evacuate. She said, everyone within 1 mile radius of the train derailment needs to evacuate. And we were like, okay, it was, I think 11 o'clock at night by this point. Didn't know where we were going. Didn't know how long we'd be gone. Swooped the baby up, threw her in the car, and off we went. Because we do live in a rural area, there's not a lot of hotels around here. We have, one hotel that's what I'd consider nearby. Everything else is a good 35, 40 minutes away. The hotels were beginning to book up very quickly. My brother had just happened to get a hotel room, so he said, just come stay with us for the night. We thought we'd be home in the morning. We never once did I think that we would never spend another night in that house again. So that was just, the first few moments. The next day we realized that we weren't going home. So we found the nearest hotel we could. It was down in West Virginia. We ended up staying there for 2 months when the evacuation was lifted for town, because ultimately on the 6th, Derailment happened on the 3rd. On the 6th, they decided to put 5 tankers of vinyl chloride over my community. A couple of days later, I think it was only 2 days later, they lifted the evacuation of the town and told everyone that it was safe to come home. The only testing that they were doing is some in-home air monitoring. They took this small device and walked through your home for like 2 minutes and told everybody it's fine. My home was about 5 steps from Sulphur Run Creek, which is still heavily contaminated almost a year later. So when they came to do my air testing, I started questioning them. I said, what all chemicals are in the creek? At this point, we hadn't even seen a manifest of which chemicals we had been exposed to. I told the guy 3 more just came out a couple days ago. He said, don't worry, manifest is coming out. I said, okay, well, have you tested the creek water? Well, we tested in a couple spots. Test results will be coming out. Did you test the soil? We don't think the soil needs tested. Long story short, I forced the railroad to come down to my house. They sent in a C-Tech. C-Tech is the company that was hired by Norfolk Southern to do testing. They sent a C-Tech lead toxicologist into my basement. Saw some creek water coming down the wall. Next day, February 15th, Norfolk Southern offered to move us. They called it a potential pathway to exposure. Fast forward almost a year later, we still have not had homes tested. People have already been forced to come back home. A lot of them got sick, even, coming back, I think a wave of people came back in like August because they knew that it would be ending soon, the temporary relocation, and they wanted to come home. People say get up and leave, or, why didn't you stay in your temporary relocation? Your kids are in school. People have jobs. To move, you have to replace everything that you own. People don't want to move. They want to know it's safe. A lot of our homes are multi-generational. A lot of the land is multi-generational. So, there are so many different reasons that people had to start coming home. But as people started coming home, you saw people getting sick from being back in their houses. We're also seeing a lot more illness now that they're tearing up the sediment in the creeks. Now that the chemicals have sat in our creeks for almost a year, you don't see it floating on the water anymore. When I first went home, I just looked over and I could see the chemicals free flowing. They don't do that anymore. Everything looks beautiful until you step into the sediment or you dig down into it with a shovel, and then you just see a volcano of rainbow chemicals still coming out of our creeks.
Yeah. Wow. And, just one of the things, the first thing that really blew my mind when I covered it the first day that it happened was that everyone I was talking to said, oh yeah, we told each other that we had to leave. And you said, Stella called you and said, hey, why are you guys telling each other? Where the fuck are the popo? Where the fuck are the first responders, the firefighters, all this shit? Because they're the ones with the freaking hazmat suits and shit. Why are they not door to door, even within a 1 mile radius? You guys were telling each other. And that's the first thing that it's mind blowing.
Well, they did, most of the firefighters and first responders were down at the fire. I think it was 68 fire departments that ended up coming in from all around. They did have some police officers that were going door to door, but obviously the word of mouth was traveling a lot faster than the cops were getting around. It's a small town. It's one of those towns, you hear an ambulance, everyone jumps up and looks out the window because it's probably somebody that you know. So, the word of mouth, but the thing that really struck me is never once did we get any kind of emergency alert on our phones. Even some areas of PA, they never got told to evacuate. They told everyone outside of this 1 mile radius, which the 1 mile was set up because that's the area in which the shrapnel would have flown had this tanker exploded. It was never set up or meant to be a zone of chemical exposure. It's not like the chemical said, hey, 1 mile out, that's right here, we can't go any further. So
Right.
a lot of people were told to shelter in place, which we've censored, was not the right thing to do. We had the EPA admit that the air testing that they were doing in our homes to show that it was safe was not done at sufficient levels. It couldn't pick up, the machine couldn't pick up all chemicals, and some chemicals it couldn't pick up until it was like 5 times the reportable level. So virtually we had zero testing, and they allowed us back in our homes. It wasn't that we weren't going to be exposed to chemicals, it's that we weren't going to drop over dead. They were also using acute levels, which is for short-term exposure, which just baffles me because we were living in this stuff. It's not like we were going to be in it for, a day and be done with it.
Right.
So there were just so many things that went wrong from the very beginning. I'm very much someone who, I guess I call myself practical. When my husband said, "What are we going to do?" And they lift the evacuation on East Palestine, I said, "Well, we're going to go home. If the EPA says it's okay, it's okay." As a college educated woman, I was always taught that the government does what it's supposed to do and you trust the government. As soon as I put in my driveway and I couldn't breathe and my lungs were burning, I was coughing, my lips were tingling, and I look over and I see the chemicals just flowing down the creek. Right then, I knew the EPA was wrong. I didn't need a scientist to tell me. I didn't need anyone to tell me that it wasn't okay. My 4-year-old, would have started coughing and running away and would have known it was not okay. Yet the EPA told us that it was safe to go home.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Mark Durno of the EPA in East Palestine, he lives 45 minutes away. He doesn't even leave in town. So those are the people, a lot of these people who make these decisions, they're not even there. They're not going to go within a mile and be like, let me smell, let me feel, am I having an effect? If so, I shouldn't let them back. They just make, this decision arbitrarily from their desk wherever.
Mhm.
And you're so right. That's terrifying. And that's
I think,
been 11 months.
and people always say, like, "Aren't you mad at Norfolk Southern?" Or, "Who are you mad at?" I would actually say that I'm more mad at the EPA. Yes, Norfolk Southern did this. They caused this. They covered up the chemicals and tried to roll out. But they're also a corporation for profit. We know that. They're not, they don't have a duty to do what's in the best interest of human health. They don't have a duty to protect me. My government does. So, I always compare it to, like, if your husband cheats on you. I look at Norfolk Southern as the other woman. Norfolk Southern doesn't owe nothing to me. I never had any expectations from Norfolk Southern. And I look at the EPA as my husband. You have a duty to protect human health. You have the duty to protect my health as a U.S. citizen, to protect my daughter's health. So when you talk about the failures, I think the most heartbreaking thing for me is that I was failed and continue to be failed by all levels of our government.
Absolutely. And you are one of the people who were within a mile radius. And we know so many who are in 2 mile, 1.2 mile, just a little bit over a mile. And, Christina, one of our dear friends who's on the Pennsylvania side, 5 miles out, but she's Pennsylvania. I mean, to give people an idea, I have stood where East Palestine meets Pennsylvania. Like, I've straddled that line on my show just to describe just how close, like, it literally touches. It's so, as Jamie said, there's no like imaginary wall. So of course, um, but yeah, the 1 mile radius was just mind blowing. But now they're, not to jump ahead, but now they're finally saying things about 5 mile radius, which is still way too little. But we can certainly get to that later. When was it that you decided to, or when they told you that you could then have your housing that you're in right now?
Actually, they told me from February 15th, that they would move me because I was only renting in East Palestine. I'd moved away for a number of years and I moved back because I found out I was pregnant at 42 years old with my miracle baby, who is special. Joy can attest to that.
Yeah.
So I moved back home to raise her there. So luckily I was only renting and they said, we'll get you out of there. We'll pay your rent. We'll get you everything you need. How much do you need? And I was like, well, let me call you back. I have no clue. And then I decided to go to the town hall meeting, our first town hall meeting that night, and tell everyone what had happened. People say now, like, you're doing this for the money, or you're what money? Number one. Number two, I would have gotten a hell of a lot more money if I kept my mouth shut. But I cared about my community members, and I knew they just weren't wrong about my house. They just didn't happen to be wrong about the one woman with a big mouth in town's house. I was just the only one that threw the fit and demanded that they come down and look at my house. So I lived, and again, even finding temporary relocation, a place to rent, how far is far enough? What can I take with me, and what can I take with me from my home? Where is my family going? So I think it was almost 5 months we were living in hotels and Airbnbs before we found a place to go. The other thing is to find something that's comparable to what I was paying in East Palestine. I was paying $650 with all of my utilities included. I couldn't find anything comparable to that. The place I have now, it costs me $1,000 a month, plus I pay all my own utilities. Like that's a huge issue that Norfolk Southern is not looking at. Is we can't find stuff that's comparable. That's why I lived in East Palestine, because the cost of living was so low. So now we're being forced into places that we can't really afford just because we can't go back to the homes that we were living in. And Norfolk Southern has done zilch. What people don't understand is this has financially devastated a lot of people. Not only did I have to move, but I had to replace all of my beds, all of our clothes, couches, rugs, anything that was fabric or porous. Scientists told us not to take because the dioxins and other chemicals can get trapped in those things. So it was completely replacing everything. Norfolk Southern did tell me that they would rent me furniture for my entire house for 2 months. When I looked it up, it was going to be like $2,500 a month. And I said, look, like, what do I do when you're gone? Everything in my apartment was brand new because I just moved home, but I didn't care about brand new. I said, look, you give me $2,500 and I'll go to yard sales. I'll go to thrift stores. I'll go to buy, sell, trade. Like, I don't need a brand new couch. I just need a couch for my daughter to sit on.
And
they ended up giving me
your
the
house
25.
Nice. I love your bedroom and your living room. Your house is nice. I love like this. You have a gift with finding stuff at thrift shops and stuff and yard sales.
You can attribute that to my mother. We both get this thrill from getting a deal, and she's the only one that understands. I'll call her and be like, I got this on sale. Because we didn't grow up with a lot of money. So that's what we did. I'm a person who bragged, I got this shirt for 50 cents instead of saying I paid $500 for my purse.
Oh, me too.
So I was able to, and just the creativity, you come up with ways. And I think that, with my home, I kind of filled it up fast because I wanted it to feel like home.
Yeah.
And especially when you have a 3-year-old, living in a hotel for that many months, not being able to play outside, not having her own things. At 3 years old, I didn't even realize how much she was listening to and hearing until we were at the hotel and she starts asking me, like, is our house broken? And I said, yeah, our house is broken. Well, what about my toys? I'll get you new toys. What about all the kids' toys? And I was just telling her, stop stressing. Mommy got this. So it's just not the financial toll it's taken on us. It's also the physical and the mental toll that it's taking on us. You talk about PTSD. Usually PTSD happens in an incident or an instant. You're in an accident or a hurricane hits or, something of that nature. But this is still over our heads. People are still getting sick. Our creeks are still heavily contaminated. There's new information coming out almost on a daily basis. So we've been kind of like living in this disaster for almost a year now. Nobody is hearing our cries. President Biden has not found the time to visit. The thing that really, really bothers me about that is his son, Beau Biden, died from being exposed to the chemical burn pits. When he was in the military, he got cancer. Biden has said that he believes this cancer was from being exposed to those chemical burn pits. This same doctor that found that link between those burn pits and the illnesses in our veterans is the same doctor that's now coming in to study residents of East Palestine. So not only does he not have compassion for us as American citizens, as his constituents, he doesn't have compassion for us as parents that are going through the same thing that he went through. To know that, our child's fate might be the same as his, that he had the same fears that we have now, that we may have to go through the same grief that he has.
And
to
yet
completely ignore
healthcare.
us. Right. Let's talk about healthcare. Yeah.
That's
he was lucky
something.
enough.
It scares me so bad because I see. Well, that's the first time I came to East Palestine was for the Medicare for All rally, and just hearing stories. I mean, I'm in all those Facebook groups, and you just see pictures, you see descriptions, and it's just like, we're 11 months in. There are people who have chemical burns on their heads, hairs are falling out, bloody noses, things like that. I mean, still 11 months in. And how do you guys, they're like, see a doctor. Well, who? With what money? It's crazy.
And we don't really have doctors in the area that know enough about these chemicals. Again, we're a very rural community. My daughter's 4, she was 3 when this happened. I took her to her pediatrician and I said, look, is there anything that we can start looking at now that would help her future medical needs? Like, I don't know, like maybe liver enzymes. If they start recording them now and watch them over the years, they can see something. She said, we have no clue. I don't know anything about chemicals. So not only do we not have doctors that are skilled in this, even the CDC clinic that they put in East Palestine does not have a toxicologist on staff. So trying to find doctors that can help us. Our doctors in the area were also told very early on not to give chemical diagnoses. We actually have a recording of a doctor telling us how the CDC sent down a memo and told all of our area doctors not to test us for vinyl chloride. Not only do people in this area, before the derailment, not really trust the government, the doctors, everything's been heightened through this because of the things we found out. CDC came in. Everything you read, Biden administration ordered CDC, FEMA, EPA to go door to door. They never did that. The CDC went door to door for one day and half of the employees got sick and they left. Yep. They left, never said they were sick. It came out like a month or 2 later. We kept asking the EPA, like, look, they kept saying, we can't find a pathway to exposure between the explosion and your illness. What's there? We're sick. We weren't sick before. So when we finally did demand as a community for the CDC to come back in to talk to us, they flat out said, you've all been exposed to vinyl chloride. We don't know what to do about vinyl chloride in the body, but we can treat the cancers it causes. So, imagine hearing that not only about yourself, your spouse, your daughter, nieces, nephews, brothers, sisters, everyone you ever cared about. When they say no one died, no one's died yet. People will die, and it'll be a slow, painful death. I don't know if you've ever seen anybody die of cancer. I watched my grandma go through it, and the thoughts of my daughter watching me go through that at an early age, or God forbid me watching her go through that, heart-wrenching. FEMA, there's no structural damage. When you come in after a hurricane, you see the houses that have been torn apart. You know how it is, Joy. It's invisible. You've been there. Everything looks normal. You can't see the chemicals that are all through the homes that are making people sick. You know, you just can't see it. It's invisible. And I think that makes it hard for a lot of people to understand exactly what's going on.
That's a really good point. Yeah, I mean, that's, for those who haven't seen it, I recorded a 91-minute conversation with Mark Durno. And no, he did not know I was recording, but that is legal in Ohio. And some of the shit he says on that recording is really just like, wow, you have no shame. And one of the things was what Jami just said. I confronted him about, the CDC saying we can't test for the chemicals now, but we can treat the cancer in the future. And he tried to come out like, oh, you misunderstand. That wasn't what he meant. Look, that's what he said. I don't give a shit what you're trying to rationalize. That's what he said. And, things like he was trying to say that some of the chemicals can come up if you eat meat or onions and peppers and shit. Like, what are you even talking about, dude? Like, so yeah, check out the recording. It's on my YouTube page. But yeah, it was just everything on that recording is just, he even acknowledged people have PTSD. Like these were things that, one of my girlfriends, Christina, Jami's best friend, she was in there with me and Jenna. And, Christina said, I've never heard him say half of the stuff he said on this tape. And I couldn't believe how much he said. And I couldn't believe that dumbass didn't ask me if I was recording because I was with Christina who had recorded him before. But I'm glad he didn't ask. But yeah, I mean, and, hopefully that helped people. But also, I think, some of the things that I was very worried about releasing, and, Christina and I talked about this a lot, was him laughing when we brought up people's health symptoms. It was disgusting, and that kind of hubris. So it was good to have tangibles of all of those disgusting things, but at the same time, like, you really see how just sociopathic the EPA is. And then also, I think one of the most, valuable things on that tape was that I said, how does the hierarchy go? And he said, they're above Norfolk Southern, but they're negotiating. And I was like, negotiating what? And I think that's the crux. You guys are supposed to be in charge. You can tell them, do this, that, but you're not.
Well, and that's the problem since the beginning, Joy, is Norfolk Southern has been in charge of this cleanup and everything from day one. When you ask them why it took so long to get the creek plans, exactly what you said. They were going back and forth and negotiating with Norfolk Southern. Said, okay.
Yep.
You talk about when I ask about, well, if the EPA was on the ground within hours, for people that don't know, after they dug these big pits, what they did was drain chemicals from the train cars into those pits and then light them on fire. So what Norfolk Southern did is they covered those pits up with gravel and put their tracks back up and rolled out. Cleaned up, zero contamination. So if the EPA was there within hours, how were they able to do that with the EPA watching? That's not me snagging a 5 off of your table real quick and you not seeing it. It took a while. And everything that Norfolk Southern has done has been community led. Just covering up the pits. We're a small community. We see you taking all the truckloads of gravel in. We don't see any dirt coming out. Yep. When they were ordered by the EPA, Norfolk Southern, to come back in and clean up the contamination, they only dug up one side of those tracks at a time. And I asked Mark Durno why. He said, 1, to keep the trains running. 2, you wouldn't want to be exposed to that much contaminated soil at once. He said, in fact, when we ask them to do the other side, we're going to ask them to do it in smaller increments and backfill it before they dig another hole. So you just told me that we were overexposed. They only did a They did a voluntary relocation when they started remediating the tracks. They did that because if they evacuated us again, a train cannot run through an evacuated community. So it was all to get the train back up and running. It had nothing to do with human health. Even blowing up the train. I mean, we found out at the NTSB hearings, none of those tankers were in danger of exploding. The one that they kept saying was in danger had actually cooled down and plateaued out. So there was no reason. We were a lab experiment. You know, some of the things that people don't talk about is the combination of chemicals. When they test for a reportable limit of, say, vinyl chloride, they only expose that subject to that one single chemical, to vinyl chloride. But what happens to the human body if you're exposed to hundreds of different chemicals at below reportable levels? There's no studies that tell us about that. When we talk about the interactions of the chemicals, I use Scott Smith's example of, you know, aspirin and caffeine. Independently, they do nothing for a migraine. Together, they cure migraine. You know, so we don't talk about what those chemicals do when they interact with each other either. You know, you talk about the health testing. It took 9 months for these professors, for these scientists to get grants to come in and study human health. You know, if they would have started studying us very early on when the CDC first came in, with what I call like a dog and pony show. They came in and made these little CDC clinics and didn't even test you for anything. You know, at least if this happens in your community, you might be able to save your child if we can't save mine. You know,
Yeah.
but there's just been so many failures. And when you talk about the year in review, it's funny because I say everyone in East Palestine is fighting the same war, but it's different battles. And I think that East Palestine has magnified a lot of issues that we've had in this country for years. You know, of course, it magnified the environmental issues, the issues of the petrochemicals that we use and how they're traveling through communities. It also magnified the failures of our government. You know, it's supposed to be government by the people for the people. And what I realized is by the time what's happening on the ground gets to the federal level, it's all politics. It's not even what's happening with the people anymore.
Yeah.
You know, so there's so many, like I always heard people say the government's crooked, and girl, you know, you've seen what I've seen. I always tell people, if I would hear myself talking about EPA cover-ups and government being owned by the railroad pre-February 3rd, I would think I was some crazy conspiracy theorist. That's because I've never had to work that closely with the EPA and the government. Let me tell you, it's the truth. And we need to do something about it. You know, it's also highlighted our issues with journalists. You know, it's who controls the media. They control everything.
Yeah.
And the fact that a lot of the journalists came in and they covered the big boom because it was exciting. It was newsworthy. Here we are a year later, and most people have forgotten about us because they've never heard about us again. You know, when you call and say people are testing positive for vinyl chloride, and you get told, Trump's getting indicted, we don't have time to put you on. You know, it really makes you look at how the news is sensationalized by, you know, what people want to see. They want to see Trump getting indicted. You know, not many people want to see me talking about my kid testing positive for vinyl chloride. But it's just really magnified so many issues on that level. And it's also magnified a lot of, I guess, personal issues that I never realized. Like, it's opened my eyes to so much, you know, even just the danger of those railroad tracks. Like, I never once thought, what if a tanker full of chemicals? And you think what if I get my foot stuck in the tracks walking across, or my car stalls, or, you know, and it's like, then I started looking around me and I'm like, okay, this just happened. And then 15 minutes away, we have the huge Shell cracker plant, the plastic plant. You know, you look down the road 15 minutes in the other direction and we have Hermitage Thermal, an incinerator. It makes you really start looking around you.
Yeah.
It makes me feel like I have a duty to warn other people. I wish someone would talk to me. recently we had an opportunity to go to PA and to talk to some residents in Beaver County that live around the plastic plant. And what we were talking to them about was the fact that there's no emergency response plan for residents if something were to go wrong at that plant. You know, and when I was going door to door, I just told them, like, look, I know you have to go to work. The kids have schoolwork. You know, we're all doing 100,000 things. And you just kind of think that that's done or someone else is going to do it. Or, you know, trust me, when it comes to the health of your child, I really wish that I would have paid attention. I really wish we would have had the proper emergency response plan in East Palestine. You know, you can look back and have regrets. But you can take care of stuff, you know, before it happens if you're aware of it. So it just, to me, like, it's just magnified so many different things that have always been issues.
I mean, in fairness, I mean, to give people an idea of the way that they're trying to so-called educate the parents, you know, one thing I will just never get over is when 45,000 fish get washed up completely dead and they give out coloring books to kids that say that fish have asthma. Like, that is mind-blowing. So that's how, you know, they want to subject kids to this complete and utter bullshit, like just propaganda, pure lies. And it's easier, you know, to just be like, okay, well, maybe that is what it is. They count on people who have cognitive dissonance and, you know, who just don't want to think about it. They want to, quote, go back to normal. But I'm hearing from a lot of residents that those people are becoming fewer and fewer because they are seeing that things are only getting worse.
Right. People told me right away that Norfolk Southern would try to divide the community. And my first response was not East Palestine. You know, like I said, most of us have known each other since grade school. Very much a community, you know, someone has a heart attack, we're having, you know, benefits, raising money for them, helping them out. And I never thought they would be able to divide East Palestine. But right now, what I see going on in my community is nothing short of adults bullying other people. We have a group of, and it's mostly business owners. I won't even talk about all the money that's been given to the business owners, because the sole focus of Norfolk Southern and our government has been economic recovery, and they focus zero on human health. Our mayor never even mentioned on TV, except for one time when he was screaming at me that people were even sick. From the beginning, the human health aspect of this has been ignored. And to me, that's the most important part. So when you have business owners that are on television saying, everything's fine, come to East Palestine, come shop here. When you have residents in town that are saying, okay, we'll take the $25 million park. Thank you, Norfolk Southern. You know, a $25 million park does not make up for the fact that my child could have cancer because of this. You know, a $25 million park means shit if your homes haven't been tested and your kid's sick. So there's this huge divide in town, and it's kind of between the have and the have-nots. But it's also created this, I want to say, people in hiding, I guess. You talk about people that will message me every day. I'm really sick. I'm starting to have seizures. We're seeing like long-term neurological effects now, tremors and seizures, but I can't tell anybody because I don't care about myself, but I don't want my kids to get bullied at school. Or, you know, I'm 100% for having our school tested. I can't believe, you know, they haven't done this, this, and this, but I can't say anything because I work at the school, or I'm a first responder, or so it's to the point where they are actually attacking people, not physically yet, but they are attacking people to the point where others don't want to speak out. And then sometimes you wonder, like, how many people actually are sick? How many people actually don't feel safe? You know, and then you start to think, well, maybe it is just me, or maybe it is just the 30 people we have in Unity Council. And then you get invited to go to a church where there's about 30 elderly people telling you how they don't feel like they've had a voice and treating you literally like you're a hero. Then you realize you have the weight of the world on your shoulders, that there's a lot of people that are depending on Unity Council because we have raised our voices to keep doing that and keep fighting for them. Some of them because they can't fight for themselves. Some of them because they're afraid of being bullied. They're afraid of their kids, afraid of losing their job. So I don't know how many people. I would say our town's about 50-50 split, with people that just want to pretend like nothing happened and that there's no chemicals in our creek, and about 50% of people that don't feel safe. I base that on the fact that we had a recent election for mayor. Both Republicans, people were not voting party lines. They were voting on whether or not they agreed with taking Norfolk Southern's money or didn't feel safe. The woman, Misty Allison, who supported human health, actually lost. It was like 46-54. But the reason why I say 50-50 is because that didn't account for the most impacted residents that have already left.
Right.
I myself couldn't vote, but I'm at least basing that on something. You'll hear the mayor in interviews saying 80% of the people just want to move forward. Where do you get 80% of the people? You only talk to the business owners, number one. You know, like, he doesn't base it on anything. But that's the only rationale that I can kind of use to guess about what is.
I just, I'm like, Trent Conway got reelected. Like, that blows my mind. And, it's the epitome of people voting against their best interests. And that's so scary. But the good news is our man is running for office. Woohoo!
Right.
Dr. Rick
Dr. Chai.
Yes, who has been on the show, and his wife has been on several times. I love when activists get pissed off and they're like, you know what? I hate the government. I'm going to become the damn government. And I'm going to, because, like, you guys know, you all sing his praises. He has helped you guys, as patients and also as an advocate, and he puts himself in harm's way in the creeks all the time. And he's just been such an incredible advocate. And, the fact that he's running is so exciting. And I'm being told that now Trent Conway, who's mayor, may be resigning and running for senator against Dr. Rick.
No, I don't think he is. I was told he's going to run for county commissioner.
Oh,
and
okay.
leave his seat as mayor. I'm not for positive on that. It really surprised me that he ran again, because when he was asked why he never went door to door, talked to residents, he's like, I have 2 kids in sports. So if you don't have time, then why did you run for election again? It's because Norfolk Southern already had him in his pocket. He's already on the bandwagon of economic recovery over human health. They ignore these residents. They being our city government, village government, they don't want to hear from independent scientists. I said, I'll give you a list of scientists that we're working with and all their credentials, and you can pick which ones can come in and talk. They don't want to hear it. EPA says it's fine. But they're all being promised that this is going to be a big booming city, that all these little mom and pop shops that probably weren't making shit anyways are now going to be in the middle of this city that has this firefighter training center where they bring people in from all over the country. Next, we're going to need a hotel. We're going to need, putting in a $25 million park. If I wanted an amphitheater and an aquatic center, I would have stayed in Cleveland. Most of us live in East Palestine because we like that small little quiet community. I wanted to go to that park and watch fireworks with my daughter, where I watched the fireworks with my dad. So the fact that, Trent is only focusing on half of the constituents. It's the same thing with our city council. It's almost like they're afraid. I had one council person tell me, well, I do go to the EPA meetings and the CDC meetings. I just don't put it out there. as a politician, why wouldn't you put it out there that you're going to EPA meetings? It's almost like when Trent Conaway was meeting with Unity Council, he was doing it on the down low.
Yeah.
It was almost like we're the dirty little side chick and he's going to ride around in the golf cart with his trophy wife Shaw.
Right.
So it's kind of like, I don't know if they feel like they have no power. And in a recent meeting with the attorney for the city and the new village manager, that's kind of what I was told. The city attorney kept saying, well, local government, what are they going to do? They don't have any power. They can't. I said, what about Trent gets on his bully pulpit he talked about? If the mayor was saying people are still sick, we don't feel like our homes are safe, it would have a lot more credence than it would coming from me or from anyone else.
They could get media there in a heartbeat. Mayor wants to speak with the news. Boom. They're there.
Right.
Like, it's even just talking about it, going on social media, that's something, because then people share, people talk about it. Like, it's
Right.
The people should not be obligated to do the amount of work Unity Council is doing. You guys have done a million times more than any freaking politician. That's for damn sure. And you guys have started from zero. Like, many of you haven't even organized. You have, Hillary has, but a lot of you guys haven't even organized. And you guys have turned into this freaking powerhouse who's like going to meet in DC with like representatives and like, doing all these events, and it's just incredible. You guys are, I know I've said it a million times, but I mean, I've been an activist and an organizer for like 8 years now, and I've never worked with people like you. You guys you have your shit together.
I disagree. The whole thing with Unity Council was early on, I realized, like I said, there are so many different battles. You almost need a couple of people just to focus on what Norfolk Southern's on, just to focus on EPA, CDC, what's going on with, property. And I guess I never realized I did have organizing experience, because at first I was like, I've never done this. And I'm like, wait a minute. Actually, someone that was interviewing me said, you almost have this organized like a union. And I'm like, this is how I organized my union when I worked at Cleveland State University. And I guess to me, I just didn't realize that being a union president was organizing. But we needed people to do different things. So I formed Unity Council, and then we made executive committees. So we have some people that just work on politics, some that work on social media. We have people that just work with human health. So even with the amount of people that we have, it's still hard to do all the work that needs done. And, actually I just posted today for the new year something about this. When I started Unity Council, it was only to bring together the impacted residents. But what it has unified has made it possible for us to do our jobs, to do the job that we have done. If it weren't for the independent scientists that are coming in educating us, that are coming in doing testing out of their own pockets, if it wasn't for the other nonprofits, you mentioned us going to DC. I think we met with 12. I think it was like 9 senators and 3 reps, something like that in one day. But it was just a chance happening at a meeting I was having that had some people from other nonprofits. And I said, hey, we're going to meet Judy Vance in DC. Do you have anybody else that would meet us? And this woman said, I'm Liz Hitchcock, and I'm I work as a lobbyist for Toxic Free Future. Gosh, I hope I got that right. And she's like, do you need help? And next thing I know, we have so many appointments scheduled that we have to break up into smaller groups. If it wasn't for the journalists like yourself, Joy, News Nation, Status Quo News, all those stations that have kept us on. So, all the people from other chemically impacted communities, Maryland coming out last Mayor Pines Beach, if it wasn't for Stephen Lester from Love Canal, giving us advice and support. So it's so much more than just Unity Council and the impacted residents. It's brought together a group of amazing people that we couldn't have done it without. That gives us hope in humanity. And if we don't stick together like that, the issues that we see going on in East Palestine, they're going to happen again. It's not if, it's when. And I pray next time it's not in your backyard. That happened to any of us. And if we're being ignored, they're going to ignore your community the same way they're ignoring us.
Absolutely. One of the things that I know one of my biggest fears, and obviously a lot of residents' biggest fears, are on the 1 year mark next month. People are going to lose housing. And I don't know, like, are you going to be okay February 3rd, or are you going to be losing where you're staying and forced to go home?
No, I am considered permanently relocated because I
Okay.
rented another apartment. So they consider you permanently relocated if you have another rental. Some people, again, I wasn't one, but I know people that still own homes in East Palestine, that still own homes in PA, but because they rented other places, they got cut off. You know, some of the things that we're facing right now, we still have to pay federal taxes on the reimbursement money, which, you know, when they're paying $5,000 a month for you to stay in an Airbnb, I would have rented a house for the year, you know. So all this money that people are going to have to pay taxes on, there are people that are still temporarily relocated. And it is right after the 1 year mark that Norfolk Southern has said that they're ending that. But yet people's homes still have not been tested. They're going to be forced to go back into these homes that still have not been tested, back to a place that still has heavily contaminated creeks, places that we don't know if they're safe or not. It's just heart-wrenching because, again, you know, just pick up and move when you have to replace every single thing in your life. It's not easy. And Columbiana County is part of Appalachia, so we're a very poor community. So a lot of people live paycheck to paycheck. They can barely get by, you know, with the basic needs in life,
And a
let
lot of
alone
people
getting the
aren't
money.
working because they lost their jobs on top of it.
Me, I lost my job because of the derailment. I took 3 days off, came back and was told you were unresponsive to emails, and I think this is going to affect your future ability to do your job. So I've been unemployed. And exactly, a lot of people have lost their jobs, some of them because of medical issues where they weren't able to go into work. Some of them because of the distance that they were driving when you were temporarily relocated. PTSD. It's a big thing right now. As someone who has always been a mental health advocate, who suffered from mental health issues before the derailment, I have never, I guess, been as affected as I am now mentally by anything in my life. You know, to watch every person that you've ever known suffer, to lose your physical home, to lose your hometown. I can never go back there because of the way people have treated me, the things that they have said, to lose all faith in your government. You know, my grandpa was a World War II Marine. My father raised us to always, you know, thank our veterans and to be proud Americans. And now I see an American flag and it makes my heart hurt. Like they've taken everything from me. They can never make it right because it's the stuff money doesn't buy. You know, you can't buy your peace of mind. And Joy has me crying again.
Jimmy, it's not my fault.
It's what I feel like. That's all I do every day. It's like, because every day it's like, you know, people say, take a break. Every single thing in your life whether it's cooking dinner and wishing you had your favorite pan, you know, if it's taking your daughter outside and being like, oh, I wish we had the creek right here, you know, to take a break, you just not talk to any of your family. It's really hard when you know you have all those people depending on you too to take a break. So mentally, it's just, and I know this fight just begun. That's the sad part too. It just begun. It's gonna be years, and this will be until I die.
What is something you want to leave with the viewers? What do you want them to take away from this? And you guys, just as a heads up, Matt, if you're still in the audience, or Jenna, can you go to my Twitter page? My pin post is the current fundraiser I'm doing for the residents. Please put that here in the YouTube comments. If you guys can donate anything, I'm gonna be getting gift cards for impacted residents for when I go up again end of this month. So if you can chip in anything, please do. Regardless, please share the link. Regardless, I was so happy we got $150 from two wonderful people who saw my post on Twitter. So thank you if they are watching. But we need right now. I have the goal at 5,000, but I want to go beyond that. This is to give you an idea. Maximilian Alvarez did a fundraiser last month. Jami and I were part of it. He's going to be helping me do one this month for this fundraiser. And we raised $66,550. And we had 183 people sign up for gift cards for their kids. So it only came out to like $35 per person, which, you know, so we need, I really want to try and raise as much as possible because there are a lot of people in need. So you may think, oh, $6,500, that's a lot. It's not really, considering the amount of, you know, people we need to help and the amount of help we want to give. So yeah, if you can put that link. I digress. Jami, what do you want to leave them with?
I just want to say, as far as the mutual aid, we've not even gotten one bottle of water from our government. A lot of us are still drinking bottled water. Please pray for us. Please spread awareness. You know, this is the only thing that's going to save us now is people hearing our stories. I don't think that anybody can be okay with sick children right here in the United States being ignored. And again, like I said earlier, this could happen anywhere. This train was on fire for 30 miles before it derailed. This will happen again. So if you don't pay attention to East Palestine, you're not helping yourselves. You're not helping your children. Like, this is a huge problem with these bomb trains traveling right through communities. We need to put a stop to this. We need to, you know, hold not only Norfolk Southern accountable, but our own government accountable too. So awareness and prayers are much appreciated.
Absolutely. You guys, thank you so much for tuning in. As always, Wednesday, I will be going on Status Quo to talk about the fundraiser and East Palestine updates. Of course, they've been doing coverage as well the past 11 months. So shout out to Lewis, who has gone there several times. And
Lewis.
What's that?
I said Lewis.
Oh, yeah, he's
Lewis.
wonderful. So I'm not sure the time. Jordan didn't tell me a time yet, but look for that Wednesday. And Thursday is the first episode I'm bringing back my show, Chasing Shadows, which was a true crime show I did for about a year. I'm bringing that back Thursday. I joined a network called From Inside Out just for that show. And it is run by people who are currently incarcerated or formerly incarcerated. And it's not just true crime. We're actually interviewing families and people who have been impacted themselves and things like that. So it's not going to be just factual. Like we're talking to spouses of people who have been incarcerated and children and what have you. So it's going to be more of a humanist response to it. So that the first episode of that is on Thursday. So subscribe to From the Inside Out Network. And again, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. And much love to everyone. Also, please donate if you can, and share. Smash the like button, smash the share button, smash the subscribe button, and smash each other if it makes you happy. Thank you again, Jami.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Much love, everyone.